So we are now joined by the directors of the new movie called Fatman. It is coming out today, and then on November 17th, it'll be available on demand, video on demand, called, again, Fatman. They also directed Small Town Crime. It is Esham and Ian Nelms. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good, guys. How are you?
We're good. We're
Not
good.
bad.
Thank you for joining us. I was going to say real quick before we started this, it's weird how we found Small Town Crime. I was going through a video store that we had and just saw John Hawkes and was like, okay, we need to watch this.
Yeah.
And we did. And we were like, I think halfway through it, we kind of just looked at each other and like, this is badass. Like, this is a crazy movie.
That's so awesome.
Especially for John Hawkes playing
Yeah.
like this like alcoholic badass cop. It's kind of like a scrape from what he usually does.
Yeah.
That was a good
So
movie.
we just wanted to kick it off with that. But you guys have Fatman, which came out, we're recording this on Thursday, but it's going to this episode will be coming out Friday. So it's coming out November 13th, and then on demand November 17th. You guys started shooting
24th. Sorry, VOD's 24th. That's
My
right. It
fault.
changed. It's 24th now.
Okay, November 24th. You guys started filming this back late 2019, early 2020, and we're filming it almost right up until the pandemic started. What was it like, filming this right before the pandemic, and then obviously editing and then getting it ready during this pandemic?
For sure. So we went over to Ottawa, Canada, went up there. We ended up pre-proing in November. So we went up to November, we started, and then we had to break for the holiday.
Mhm.
And then we came back, we started shooting in January, and we shot right up until March. And
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, so what's kind of interesting is we wrapped the day before they shut down every production in Canada.
Oh.
The day
geez,
before.
dude.
That's
So
so
it was-
lucky.
Yeah.
Such a narrow margin for error because, we would have never been able to finish the
We
film.
didn't have a budget to go back and shoot any extra days. So it was literally like, if you don't get the film, you don't get the film. Whatever you don't have, you don't have.
And that only happened because Mel Gibson's schedule pushed us up
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks earlier than we wanted to start. So at the time we were stressed because we were hurrying and racing to get the movie up and going. But in the long run, it's the only reason we finished the movie.
Obviously, Mel's schedule was working on different
It was-
wavelength.
And then coming back to California, now we're walking back into a pandemic zone, which we have no one, we'd never made a movie under that condition before. So Ian and I edit the picture ourselves. And so we went and we retired to his humble basement. We moved all the editing equipment into his basement. And then we sat there on our two setups, dueling setups, and we edited the movie over the next 4 months.
Yeah, we're basically front to front. So it's like the two setups
Wow.
are like this, and then we have tables, and we both sit, like this. And the cool thing about that is we can literally just yell at each other and be like, "Hey, what do you think of this? Blah, 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 blah. And come look at this," and he'll spin it around, and come look at this, and I'll spin around, and then it's really cool because we kind of just jump scenes. So it's like, I'll take 1 and 2, okay, I'll take 3 and 4, and then it's like boom, 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 and then it's like put them together, boom, and then it's and then we kind of switch chairs on each other's edits. So
like,
it's
come over here, sit in this chair. I'm gonna go sit in your chair.
Yeah, and then we kind of swap chairs and look at each other's scenes, and we're like, "Oh, he fucked this up," or "Oh, that was fucking cool," or then we switch again, and you get back what he did, and you're like, "Okay, you fucked this up. I had it great before." Whatever. It's literally just like tossing the ball back and forth until we finally needle it to where we're both happy with it. We're like, "Is that good? Like, does that pass your shit test?" He's like, "Yep, that passed my." Okay, great, we're good. And then we call it quits and we move on.
And I think that the editing process sort of echoes the writing process for us.
Yeah.
So that process in the beginning is very tied together in that we'll brainstorm an idea. Ian, is like a sprinter out of the gate, so we'll usually brainstorm something that night, and then
It doesn't always work out that way, but I do get overly anxious sometimes, and we're like, "We got this idea," and I'm like, "Oh yeah."
And then he'll type it up.
I gotta do this.
Exactly. This is going down on paper right now.
Yeah. Pages show up tomorrow. I'm like, dude, I wanted to fucking write that.
Too bad. Too slow.
And then we'll revise and we'll pass the draft back and forth until we're both super happy with it.
Yeah.
Jeez, man. Well, and okay, so you guys did all of that. You were living together for 4 months and writing this during the pandemic.
Well, we don't live together. We don't live together right now, but we lived together for the first decade of our lives down here in LA. But I have a family and a wife and 2 kids.
So I would be an unwelcome addition to the household. A permanent addition.
He
Yeah.
could take
You guys
over.
weren't like locked in during the quarantine. You could split up at the end of the day.
But
It's
it's
a
exactly
short
what it sounds like. For 6 months, we were in my basement editing the film and refining it.
And I was eating all of Ian's food.
And he was eating all of my drumsticks that I have in the freezer for the kids.
The kids were like, "Where the hell are our drumsticks? Like, what's wrong? Why is our uncle stealing our food?"
Uncle Esham took them down, guys. Sorry. But yeah, so it would be 6 months of us editing, which was great because since the pandemic was on, there wasn't much to do anyway, and we kind of got to be creative, while that was on, and really have a nice distraction. So yeah, that part of it was amazing. That for the some of the newer worst part of the lockdown, we were
there was some hiccups in when we got further on down the post production chain, and so Ian and I are really passionate about the audience being that last stage of collaboration. And so we do a lot of test screenings.
It's like 5 to 10 people.
And we'll do multiple. I mean, I think for Fatman, we couldn't do it, but on some of our previous films, we've done like between 5 and 10 people, and we'll do up to 50 screenings, private screenings in the house.
And they're very pointed. So, I mean, at first you start off and you're just screening your rough cut and you're kind of like, is this even fucking working? Right? You're like, I pray to God people are at least getting what I'm hoping out of this thing. And then you refine that after a couple screenings. And I think after you kind of get your pacing problems in your arc or your story or your character or whatever, after those bigger ones start to kind of go away, you can start really tuning into the nuance of like, did you get this thing? You're doing those screenings for 5 to 10 people, and you're taking note of everything that does or doesn't work for them. And you're trying to preserve everything that does, and you're trying to work on everything that doesn't. And a lot of times you get to the point where it's the note behind the note. You keep hearing that this or this is something or other, and you're not quite sure what the fix is or even what the problem is. And then pretty soon you fix something, you hear, and then someone either eloquently says it and it hits you and you're like, oh shit.
Like the reason they're not feeling that here is because we forgot to set that up 15 minutes earlier.
Damn. Okay. We need to get this and reappropriate it and put it up there, or man, we had that in there and we took it out, or, and you start finding that area and then you solve it. And then you're like another screening. And then you're like, did we solve it? And then a lot of times, sometimes those things are so nuanced that you'll do 2 or 3 screenings and it won't pop up again. And you're like, we solved it. Thought we'd figured that out. And then like, another screening comes up and it's up again. And you're like, damn, it's back. Why is it back? And then you're going through a whole new process again. But yeah, that's really valuable to us as we're honing in on our story and our character.
Eventually, like where we like to land is when we show it to people, and let's say it's 7 people. Every one of those 7 people have a different quibble. Oh, well, I would have done this differently. I would have done that differently. I'd done that. Well, then it's just their subjective opinion.
And once you do that a couple times, you get 3 or 4 or 5 screenings like that, and it's kind of what it is, and people are generally liking it. Hopefully, then you've kind of landed where you're at. You're like, okay, I think we're in a good spot now. Like,
but it's when you do those screenings of 6 or 7 people, and 3 or 4 of them point at this particular moment or that particular moment. You're like, okay, that's a real problem we need to fix.
Yeah.
Were y'all able to do any like virtual screenings or anything for this, or you just
this one, that's all we could do, right? There was no like, let's all get together.
Communal screening experience.
Yeah, so we would send it out one-on-one, and I think we sent it out to 70 or 80 people, and then we did individual interviews / questionnaires / focus group with phone calls with every one of those 70 or 80 people individually, and wrote down notes, and we had to do it that way. It's the only way it worked.
So you guys did this personally yourselves, like all 7 8?
Jeez, oh yeah,
a lot of work.
That reminds me. We did an interview back over the summer, and there was a guy who was like, he had put out a movie called Easy Does It, and he called theaters one by one just to get it into the theater. So like, that just level of like commitment to like.
Well, he was calling drive-in theaters, because there weren't even like any theaters open.
That's insane. So when people saw this, those private screenings, what was their first reaction to Mel Gibson as Santa Claus? Because that's and Walton Goggins as
really rough Santa Claus. Too.
Like what was your reaction to that Santa Claus?
To be honest, they were really positive. And we heard a lot of, this is fucking awesome. Like, holy shit. Like, wow. I mean, I think especially since you have to realize that a lot of those people,
we would just give it to them cold.
We wouldn't tell them what it was really. We would just say, hey, we've got this crime thriller with a comedic undertone that, hey, we want you to watch it. It stars Mel Gibson and Walton Goggins. And they're like, oh fuck, that sounds cool. Let me watch that. And then, which was great because 20 or 30 minutes into the film, when we pretty much reveal that it's Santa Claus, everyone has that kind of moment that you do when you watch the trailer. They're kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. What the fuck? This guy's Santa Claus? Holy shit. Like, you may think that it's a movie where he's going to become Santa Claus, or, it's what that those tropes are kind of playing, but you don't think that he's already there. or that it just rolls out so hopefully easily and nicely for you that it's kind of bold, it kind of slowly takes you over, and you're just like, holy shit, I didn't know I was watching Santa. I'm like, wow.
I remember a lot of people were like, I can't believe it. It's Riggs. He's 65 and he's Santa.
He's like on the door of retirement too.
Yeah,
right?
it looks like he's about to be done. It's like, no, like he's going to be in this for a while. It's such a crazy story, and I'll never forget like watching the trailer and then showing you, and you're like, dude, we have to watch this.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
This movie is insane.
And then we got like 30 seconds into it, and we knew he's supposed to be Santa Claus, and he's just taking pot shots at the beer cans. We're like, yeah, we're pretty sure we're gonna like this.
This is going to be awesome. Where did this idea come from? Like when you guys were writing this together, how did this come about? Because it is such a wild story.
Well, I think, look, honestly, for us, it excited us to explore something that hadn't really been done cinematically before. And so we've all seen Santa as Tim Allen, right? A little more kid-friendly, overall fare. We've all seen a sociopath that comes down your chimney and wants to murder you in your sleep. And Ian and I were like,
what?
Yeah, kind of. He can like just break in and enter into your
Guess
house,
so,
basically.
yeah.
And so Ian and I felt, you know what, like there's a take we could do. We take this fantastical character, we ground him, we give him some real human idiosyncrasies and foibles.
And then we were like, he's kind of a superhero already. Like he has like superpowers. He's like, he lives forever. He fucking flies around in a magical sleigh. He can like get inside your head and know what you're thinking. You've been naughty or nice. Like we were like, how far can we take this? And like, how do we ground this into like, cause we're big fans of things like Unbreakable, where they take a superhero genre and like really fucking ground it. And you're like, you didn't even know he was a superhero till an hour into the movie, and then like all of a sudden he's bench pressing 800 pounds and like, like you're like, this guy's fucking unkillable. Oh,
and then Sam Jackson is revealed to be the villain, and you're just like, oh, this movie's great. And so there's this sort of like atypical superhero genre,
kind of genre mashing that we were really excited about doing. And of course, we're Shane Black fans, we're Tarantino fans, we're Clint Eastwood fans. So you've got some of that Western vibe in there, and you've got some of that Dirty Harry in there, and you've got these kind of Lethal Weapon fans, Die Hard. I mean, all these things are sort of coming into play, but we're also fans of movies like HUD and Last Picture Show, and like these very intimate character pieces that are sort of about the area
more dramatic
that we grew up in, and about the people we grew up with. This very blue collar, working class human being that's having a rough time with his business as he's trying to figure out how to make it last and how to get out of the slump he's in. And those themes obviously relate, to today, as it's like those themes when we wrote it 14 years ago, like they seem to just,
become more and more relevant
as time goes on. But yeah, that's kind of where the idea came from. And then it was like, how do we ground this? What are the rules? What are his powers? How would this actually be a real person? And that's what we were really excited about doing, was introducing I go all day, introducing these characters to you as human beings, and then you getting the fantastical elements of them later, after you've been introduced to them as people, and hopefully understand and attach to them as who they are as a human being first, and then it's like, oh shit, he's Santa. Oh shit, that's right, we're playing with the Christmas tropes here. Oh, that's right. Like he's got a sleigh. Oh, and we didn't want to show like, as far as like the idea of, oh, like how much of this fantastical Christmas lore do we want to see? Well, we've got some reindeer in there. We've got a sleigh in there, but no one's like shooting across the moon. And that's absolutely on purpose. We were like, every movie does that. Like, that's not anything we're going to improve upon, or like, now he's got rockets or what, who cares? I've seen it 1,000 times. Like
the military put a rocket on the back.
Right.
F-16
So we were just like, let's skip that. I'm not interested in that with this film. I'm interested in seeing the in-between moments, or the before and the after moments. What's he like before he leaves the house? What's he like?
Yeah. What are he and Ruth like in their most intimate moments?
Right. Like, what I've never seen. Dude, does Santa have sexy time? I don't know. What kind of guy is he? Like, he's a guy. They're a couple. Like, they've got to have like a warm, intimate relationship. And a lot of those,
somewhere.
A lot of
for a second we were gonna get a bare Santa ass scene, and I was like, that might be a little too far.
We kept it classy.
Come on, Ryan.
But that was the impetus of it, is to like, how do we ground it? How do we get the human being element of it? And how do we how do we, like, we wanted to skip all the over the top tropes, right? And we wanted to ground the elves, and we wanted to ground everything, and just give you something that you could relate to, and that felt real, man. Like, what would this really feel like? And if he's having a tough time, like, okay, let's build a world. You start to realize why he's having a tough time, because everything's kind of falling apart, and it's like, how do I fix this? You know, now he's got to figure out how to fix it.
So, switching like gears a little bit, how many child actors did you go through before you settled on the one that you casted for this? Because I can only describe this kid as like a mini Al Pacino Scarface that's now after Santa Claus for
like Al Pacino, like mixed with Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just evil Bruce Wayne who like has a hitman, basically. Alfred is like a hitman.
Instead of Alfred, he's got his grandmother.
Yeah,
right.
Who's also probably evil.
Well, she was, right? Like,
yeah.
So look, we looked at a lot of audition tapes.
It was a real 80s sort of Star Search kind of vibe, as we like were watching every tape you could imagine of someone coming in that age group from like 9 to 12, giving us their take on it. And Chance just freaking leapt out, man. We like watched his, and we're like, oh my God, he's so good.
And then when he was so good, we said, is he too good? Because we're like, you know, because instantly you say, okay, is this young man acting, or is this young man?
Is this really him?
Should we really bring him on set? Because
yeah, like, I mean, that was a legitimate concern. We're like, okay, like we need to talk to this young man, and we need to get him on Skype and like see who he is.
Is he a maniac? We can't bring a maniac on the set. So like we talked to him, and like he couldn't have been a sweeter, smarter, more precocious young man. And like we were just like, oh my God, this kid's like really smart. He's really sweet. Like, and then he was like, on the Skype, he's like, you want me to do anything different? And we're like, well, I guess, yeah. Well, what do you think about this little note? And he was like, okay. And we're like, yeah, you know, think about it, take some time,
work with your acting coach.
Work with your acting coach. And he's like, no, I'm ready to do it right now. Okay, I've digested it. I'm ready to go. We're like, okay, yeah, all right. He's like, no, I like this. Bring it. And we're like, okay. So we give him a note. Boom. He's like,
pirouettes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing with like one little note. And then he's like, anything else? And we're like, damn, that was
now
good.
We just want to see what he can do, right?
So we're like, we can do it. So we give him another note and another like flawless pirouette. We're like, holy shit. And it was great because we actually, you know, we were trying to give him time to record it and take his time with it. But what it really did was cement to us that this kid's really good and he can make adjustments really quickly. And, you know, we don't have all the money in the world on this thing. So
time is definitely of the essence.
Time is of the essence. And a lot of times you have an hour to get a scene and it's like, okay, how are we going to light this? And this kid's only got 15 minutes now to like nail this. He's the kid. Like that's where you take the most time, is trying to dial this kid's performance in. Whereas Chance would come in 110% ready to go on the money. And you could do little dial adjustments. You do whatever the hell you want because he was good enough to pirouette on a dime and turn it. So a scene you'd think with a normal child actor or a young actor that you would have to sort of, you know, inch your way through or because you're trying to get all these layers and all these different dynamics to the character. And he would you give him a note or two and man, he'd get 5 takes at it in 15 minutes, which is a lot. You get 5 or 6 takes at it and you nailed it. And you're like, okay, I guess we could do another one or we could just cut early. You know, honestly, He was great. He was so good.
He was awesome, especially the car battery scene.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like, a skilled actor coming in and underplaying those lines and really delivering that scene. Like he did such a great job in that scene. That's not easy to play for a kid, especially who you know, you could easily get a mustache twirling villain in that moment, which could ruin the moment, you know?
Well, the other actor that is in that scene is Walton Goggins, and he's started to get a lot more acclaim within the last probably 3 to 4 years. He's doing The Unicorn, which I guess is coming back today. And he has this movie. And he was in Justified Deadwood. He's an amazing actor.
So good.
He's so unique. What was it just like, basically, was he the first person that you thought of for this role? And when he got onto set and he was starting to really kind of play with it, what was his reaction to the stuff that you were giving him?
So I think the first thing that Walton was, he wasn't the only person we had talked to about the role of Skinny Man.
We were probably at about a dozen people we were talking to for that role.
But I will say, once we sat down with him, he was undeniably Skinny Man. He was like, I remember at this coffee shop, and we're getting excited. We're geeking out. He stands up. He starts doing the part. This is a crowded coffee shop. People are all around, you know.
Yes.
He's delivering lines. We're like, this is the guy. Like, I cannot wait.
Like he has this great ability. I think, you know, you see it on set, and that's a little more of a coveted environment, a little more sheltered environment, right? Where everyone's quiet. You know, and then okay, I'm going to get in my zone. Don't walk past my eye line. That's not ever an issue, but I'm just saying, like, you want to give them that kind of protection so they can fucking get in the, you know, whatever, get in the moment. Nothing to take them out. And whereas Walton's able to sort of channel that in any environment, he could probably be in the middle of New York City street and fucking all of a sudden, a busy one, and all of a sudden just fucking dial something to 10 and be there and be able to let everything else fall away. He's just that guy. He's got such great skills at just kind of committing and leaning into something and being there. And we noticed it right away. So, and when you're working with him on the set, it's great because he kind of keeps everything at a low simmer all the time. He's not sitting there as skinny man. Oh, they address me as skinny, or, you know, there's none of that craziness. But like, you talk to him in between takes, and you're like, hey man, yeah, right. We've heard stories, but he would be just simmering. So he's like out taking a second, getting some air or whatever in between takes or whatever he's doing. Maybe you want to ask him something about lunch, or maybe you want to, hey man, what do you want, chicken or beef or whatever, you know, and he's kind of like, let's go with the beef. You know, it's always kind of like in character, although he's answering everything as Walt. There's kind of a simmer just beneath the surface is Skinny Man lurking, which was always really fun and funny, and awesome. So he's so great to work with, man. He's so much fun.
And I think as far as the character of Skinny Man, Walton, I know we really drilled down on that character with him. We you know, through his collaboration, evolved the character. When he's sitting there in front of the camera, he's giving you so many different alts. I mean, he's doing, you know,
not alts where he's like, you know, riding across on a unicycle, like alts like outside of the character, outside of the scene, or like things that don't work. He's giving you little nuanced nudges to certain things, or he's dialing it up to 11 for a second, coming back down to 10. You know, like he's giving you little movements inside that character and that in the scene, to where when you get into that editing room, you have some options, and it's like, oh man, let's try this really funny one. Ah shit, it's a little too funny, doesn't quite, it's tipping. You know what I mean? We're tipping into farce, or we're whatever. Like, he gives you everything you could imagine to have as an option in that editing room. It's like, oh shit, I wasn't thinking about it on the day, but I'm really glad he gave us this one that was really somber, or this one that was really funny, or whatever, because it works better in this transition. You know, like, yeah, he's such a talented guy, man. He's got so many different gears. You know, I don't know. There's not anything I don't think that guy could do. You know,
I could have totally seen him riding a unicycle though, like in that montage. That would fit really well into that montage.
Just around his apartment or something. Yeah.
And I will say, Walton could have pulled it off.
And yeah, honestly, like, Walton will go hard for you, and I think there are times where he's like, yo, I want to go all out. This might be a little too much, but I'm just going to go all out. And he would do something really funny.
Just let me go. Sometimes those are in the movie, and sometimes it's a little bit too much, and he had to pull back a touch. But I'd say the couple of like, when you're saying like collaborating with him and talking to him about the character, like, he absolutely is like, okay, what do y'all see this as, you know, and then starts forming his own attack plan, you know. And I think even in those early meetings, we were just kind of like,
yeah, he's like, what's Mel doing?
Because he goes, yeah, he wants to know what Mel's doing, and like, is Mel gonna be really grounded? Like, what am I playing against? You know what I mean? And then it was like, okay, after those initial questions are over, he goes off and like attacks, and like a month or two later, he shows up on set, like,
got the haircut,
fucking dialed. You know what I mean? Like, and you can make little adjustments, and honestly, you could probably throw the whole thing on and start again, and he wouldn't, like, you know, whatever. But he's got something amazing prepared for you. So that when you're like, action, you want to see him do what he does for 2 or 3 takes, because that magic that's inside of him is what you paid for. That's what you're after. That's what you want. You know, that's why he's on. That's why he's here. So we just let him go. And then it's like, well, let's try one a little bit this, or he's like, hey, let me try this one where I do this thing with this napkin. We're like, all right, fucking great. Yeah, go for it. And then, but I think the 2 main things that we talked about, and it's just 2 words, like, it was like unpredictable was one of the big words. One of the big character traits that we wanted to that character. Dangerous was another one, but it's like unpredictable and not necessarily particular, but almost neurotic. We wanted him to have a neatness to him. We wanted him to have
fastidiousness.
Fastidiousness. We wanted a particularness to this character but he was very precise about certain things he did. And then, of course, Walton brings in that wonderful voice and some of those wonderful moments. And I mean, even the way he picks up a hamster and kisses it and then drops it back in is all very like, you know.
That's just Walton bringing that to the scene. Like,
yeah, like it's all very particular though. And it's all a certain motion, you know, like it was all very, like he would do certain things. And it was fucking great to watch.
And honestly, like you guys saw the film, but like there's a montage sequence in the film. And
driving.
We just got in a car with Walton
and spent like 5 hours
and drove around.
Yeah, actually drove.
Oh yeah.
For 5 hours in the back of that car. And then, like we would pull over, like, hey, pull over here. We ran into the Walmart and like just bought a bunch of shit and threw it at him. And we're like, hey, drink the soda, like eat this, like do that. And he's like pulling into drive-throughs. It was probably the most fun. We
probably the hardest thing was cutting that 5 hours down to 25 seconds or whatever it is.
We could have made an entire film out of that.
A road trip, you know, like a 2-day adventure, 5 hours of fucking footage of him driving.
I need a documentary of that road trip because that sounds like it was so badass. Like
there was one moment where he was literally spinning donuts in a parking lot. I mean, it was fucking. We were having so much fun, dude, and he was fucking laughing hysterically and manically, and like it was fucking amazing, man. Like, but you know, those moments were either a little big or they took a little long or it just wasn't quite what we needed at that moment. You know, we got to get in and out of this, and what are the most important moments of this journey that we kind of need to show to, you know, not only put you with this guy for a second to make it feel real, but also give you a little bit of a chuckle sometimes, you know?
But I think that the other part about that montage, and we're talking about a 25-second montage a lot, but it's one of the better.
He's driving from
United States to Canada,
to the North Pole. Yeah.
But it's like it's one of the best parts of the whole movie. And what was my question? I had a whole question about it. It's most of the time when you see movies like that where a character goes from one location to another, it's just like all of a sudden they appear there and it's like, okay, you never see that journey. And that's one of the best parts. You see the whole journey and you can feel that across, you know, basically a whole country. Was that on purpose or was that just kind of a unexpected, you know, accident for that?
We wanted to definitely, I mean, you could see those bits that are in there as you learn a little bit more about the guy. You know, he goes into the hamster store, you know, the pet store, and you learn a bit about his mother and a couple other things and what kind of person he really is underneath there, you know.
Like we just didn't want to make him like, oh, he's a bad man and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and what motivates him? Why is he like that? He's a result of his environment.
And that would have been the best line in the movie is when he tells the pet store owner, like, you remind me of my mom. Yeah, I was like, I'm definitely using that at some point.
and, like no one can deliver those lines like Walton, right?
No, exactly.
I mean, the dude is just amazing.
Yeah, and as far as that little, I mean, yes, we absolutely were trying to pace out. Okay, he stops at the Canadian border, and even at the Canadian border, there's two things that happen there for him as a character. One, you get to see him have this sort of moment of psychosis where he's thinking about killing the woman behind the fucking the
booth.
Yeah.
You go into this moment where it's kind of floating into him and he starts kind of going, what if I kill this woman? Like, how many people are around? You know, like he's wondering if he's going to get across the border. You get to see him like go into crazy mode, but then pull back for a second because it's going to be a lot better for him if he just slides through. And then you get to see him be really confident. You get to see him say some certain leading or, you know, like where he says, I'm here for hunting. I'm going to kill some things. You're like, that was fucking brash. You know what I mean? Like, guy's confident as fuck. Like, this guy's going to kill.
He has his car at that point.
Yeah. Like, we were just having, and like, even when he drives up there, he drives up, like, revs the fucking engine. He goes up there, like, he's so like, fuck you to the establishment, you know? And even though it's just a person in a fucking toll booth, that represents something to him.
Mm-hmm. And then we just threw some red herrings in there. You know, he's going to pass certain things that you're like, oh, is this where this happens? And like, oh, nope, that didn't happen. You know, like
at the Alaska sign, and you're like, oh, wow, I think that's going to turn into something. And it doesn't. Like, we love doing that in the movie of throwing these things at you to throw you off the scent pretty much, you know? Because you think that it's going to go a certain way, I think, at certain points. That's the idea, is that you think it's going to, your mind, because when you watch a movie, you're constantly like trying to get ahead of it. And it's not something that someone's doing to be annoying. It's just something your brain does. It's something human brains do. They try to get ahead of the story. And whether you're speaking them out loud, you're the a-hole at the party trying to ruin the end of the movie, or whether you're just, everybody has it, you know what I mean? It's going on internally. So we like to fuck with you in those realms when you're watching the movie of like, oh, it's going to go here. I know it's going to go here. And whether you're saying that loud or that's happening internally and then it doesn't go there, it gives such a great moment when you go in the left direction when they thought you were going to go right. And then they're like, well, wait a minute, fuck, I don't know where I'm at in this. And I don't really know what to expect. This fucking thing could do anything. Holy shit. Like it gives you this paranoia and this kind of like moment of like, oh, fuck, I don't know where I'm at right now, in a good way that we want you to be like fucking trying to figure this shit out and you can't. That's the vibe we're going for.
Well, that's what made the movie so much fun because like you get maybe halfway through the movie and you stop and realize, wait, okay, the U.S. Army or Air Force is at the North Pole building component parts for like a fighter jet. What the fuck is going on in this movie right now?
Yeah, we definitely wanted to throw a lot of curveballs.
I mean, and that actually came about as us just having a frank discussion of like, okay, well, how's that would really work, right?
And that came through some research. I mean, it actually is a phenomenon that's happening where these control panels for these fighter jets are so elaborate and so labor intensive that very few American fighter jet panels are made in the U.S.
They farm them out to like China and India, which is kind of amazing to think about. You're farming out some of your most elaborate technology for fighter jets, something you use to defend the country, and you're farming it out to countries that you're not exactly 100% friendly with. And then they're sending them back to you to put into massive machinery,
multi-million-dollar airplanes
that you would use to defend yourself against them.
And then we're surprised when they magically have like an exact replica.
Exactly.
And so we were like, oh, it's like a national security thing. Like that's why he's like they come to him with this.
And even though we don't go down the rabbit hole on that because then we're into God knows where with the movie, but yeah,
these are the sort of levels of discussion.
These are the sort of discussions we're having, and why I think you head down certain paths and you get enough details. You're like, well, that seems legit. Jesus, where are we going with this? And then, I mean, it ends up being that they're there to serve two purposes. I mean, they're there to be the entire reason, Chris is depressed telling those elves what he has to do. And that it's amazing that in a military complex, sort of has to come in and take over and sort of regulate. And I mean, they've never worked under those auspices before. And then the other part of it is they're a wonderful, guard for Skinny Man to come in through, because we don't make the elves aren't violent people. They don't have guns or even slingshots to defend themselves. They're very worker oriented. They love working. It's what they're all about. Eating sugar and working.
Diets.
Yeah. So those were the levels we're going through of like, what do we know about elves and the mythology, and like what can we play with, and what can we wouldn't it be interesting to match them up with military? And we don't play the military as villains. I mean, it's a dark thing that happens to Chris's factory, but
it's a necessary
but they're
means to gain an end.
Right, but they're people too, and there's not like a villainry going on. It's more like, okay, well, we're gonna have to fucking figure out how to work together,
And what excited us was like the sort of mutual admiration that happens by the end of it. Jacobs is sort of enamored with the working dynamic.
Like the cut of your jibs, huh? Those kind of moments. It's like those were so much fun to play with, and those actors, Robert and Eric, were so good, man. They did such a good job of again, keeping something grounded that could easily go into mustache, unicycle land quickly. It could be real stupid real quick, and we were really trying to ground it. So they did a great job. They're so great in it.
When you have so at the end of that montage, he stops at a convenience store, and if you look really closely, the convenience store is Nelms Convenience.
Right.
Is that the first of like an Easter egg for y'all, or do you kind of sprinkle stuff like that throughout this and Small Town Crime?
Well, that is an amazing surprise for us when we showed up on set that day, because our production designer, Chris August, would throw shit like that in there to, have some fun. And he threw that one in there.
There's some like badges on all the machines.
On all the machines that are in Santa's workshop, there's like a Nelms Enterprise brass placard on the side of them.
You can't see it. We never prominently featured
but they're there. And when you get close and move by them, if you were to freeze and sort of close to the left 25 times, you'd be able to see that, you know?
There was a piece going through some of our previous films. It didn't quite make it into this one, but we had put my 84 Volkswagen van in like all 4 of our previous movies.
In some way or another. It didn't make it into this one because we were in Canada and you couldn't drive it up there. It didn't drive it up there. Good. But, and then I guess there's names we reuse over and over again. Like a really good friend of mine from high school, his name's one of the last names in the movie we keep using over and over. It's in every one of our films. But yeah, we just keep using his last name because he's near and dear to us and it's fun to put him on weird characters.
Yeah. No, I got one more for you, and it's something I talked about a little bit on Twitter today. But you guys have in Small Town Crime, it's a 70 Chevy Nova, and then the car that he's driving in this movie is very, very similar to that. What about those types of cars are really interesting to y'all and make you want to put those back into your movies?
So I think there's two reasons. So the first one in Small Town Crime is a Nova, and in high school we had a friend that drove a badass Nova like that,
very much like that.
And we loved that car. I remember he took us for a drive in it during lunchtime one time, and like this force of that car's acceleration threw us back in our seats, and we were just like, this is an amazing automobile. So we've always had a reverence for the Nova, and so that was the motivation of putting it in Small Town Crime. And then
and plus, because the character, it matches the character because he's kind of a maniac, you know, John Hawkes in that movie. Like,
yes,
he's so freewheeling and like, fuck it, tossing it to the wind every 5 seconds. Like, that car matches him so well, you know, as a character. That's why we wanted to put that in there.
Yeah. And then on Fatman, we were really excited about putting Walton in the same car, which is a Monaco police car that the T-800 drove in Terminator.
And so when he pulls up that, don't want to ruin the ending here, but I guess I just did. But when he pulls up that toy that means something to him,
yes,
that is the same make and model as the car he drives, but it's not a police car. You know what I mean? So it's almost like he's driving the right car. It just does not
he took the antithetical approach,
which we thought was a great symbol. Of course, it's pretty layered, but it's a great symbol of like, you know, he's not a police officer, which is what he should have been, but he's should have been. He's a fucking maniac driving the same type of car, just without the police equipped, you know, version of it.
Yeah.
So we liked it because it was a callback to what, as in the movie, Chris is giving gifts, and that's what he gives things to people that have a propensity towards something to help them in their lives or something to encourage them in a certain direction. And we liked that because it was a real callback to how it could go wrong, you know, like how this kid was meant to go this way. And
meant to be a police officer.
He went this way.
Ended up being a hitman.
Yeah.
Still drives police model car.
And probably has the same mentality, but it's negative, you know, like he's very like, by the book, you know, you could see him being a cop if he was on the good side.
Alternate universe.
Yeah, in an alternate universe, he could be a good guy going out to determine to scrape the negativity and the evil out of the world, you know, but he tipped the other way. He tipped the other way, and he's a hitman, you know. He's
been some like Spec Ops, like you know, Ranger or something like that.
Which you see him like Spec Ops like style as he's like going into the workshop, like that's very much an army.
Yeah, well, amazingly, fortunately for us, we didn't have to pay for it, thank God. Walton did a SEAL Team 6 type movie. I might even get the title of it. Anyway, he did like a SEAL Team 6 type movie where he went and got trained as a Navy SEAL for weeks.
Shit.
So that's one of the things he told us right off the bat when we were talking to him. And he saw that in the character. He's a man who needs to know how to handle a gun and know how to be tactical when he moves into an environment.
Our idea was that skinny man is definitely self-trained.
Yeah, because I mean, we have him as like, he's in there practicing shooting. He's in there practicing jujitsu. Like he's constantly like trying to better himself as an assassin, you know, like, but he's all self-taught because he's just got too much hubris to take any direction from anybody.
No, and that's like with the superhero, or not the superhero thing, but you know, you showed these kids who like got a play set that was like a cooking thing, and then one
fireman,
and she became a firefighter. So you see like how these kids were spurred along on their career path because of the things that they got. And so you see like, and I don't want to give any spoilers away, but with Skinny Man, he obviously didn't have that, but he knew the path that he wanted to take, but because he didn't have those role models or whatever in his life, or he didn't get the breaks that maybe those kids did, he went down a completely separate homicidal path.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's such a crazy, fun ride of a movie. Definitely
be like top 5 Christmas movies.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, man, that warms the heart, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's just a fun, Christmas movie to go check out. I said November 17th earlier, but it's actually November 24th, video on demand. It comes out today in select theaters throughout the United States. There's a couple here in our area. So go check out on Fandango, see where it's playing, or just wait till the 24th to watch it at home. But it's Fatman. Guys, thank you for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. We're excited for your future projects, and we'll definitely have you guys back on for your next movie.
Alex, Ryan, thank you so much for having us, brothers.
Thanks for having us,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, night.